Fáilte OCallaghan, you're welcome indeed to another edition of the programme. Well, this week we're in the lovely town of Westport, where a plaque commemorating the first member of Garda Síochána was unveiled at Westport Garda Station as part of Garda Síochána's centenary celebrations. Patrick Joseph Kerrigan from the Fair Green in the town had an extraordinary and tragic life. His role as Garda number 1 began with a ceremony in the RDS on February the 21st, 1922. Garda Tony McCabe of Westport Garda Station, who was very much involved with the planning of this event, takes up the story. Tony, this is a very historic day for Garda Síochána here in Westport.
Yeah, it's the first of the centenary celebrations that we're having. Of course, this is from 1922 to 2022, 100 years of Garda Síochána. So this is the first event that we're having nationwide, and it's happening here in Westport, the best place to live in Ireland, of course. And the reason is because the first guard ever to join on Garda Síochána was a man called J Kerrigan. He was born in the house right across from us here on the left-hand side here, and he was born on the 11th of September 1892. Now, he had what you might call an interesting career. He was in 3 police forces and 2 armies, but he was born and bred here. So on the ground that we're standing on at the moment was where he grew up as a child, and joined the RIC and the Garda Síochána then as the first man. He was Garda number 1. So we're marking the occasion here today, 100 years on. First member of the Gardaí to join on the 21st of February 1922, J Kerrigan from Westport, County Mayo. What's really interesting is that we have brought his relatives over from the United States. They've come from Boston, Massachusetts, and he had other family then up in County Louth. And today is the first day that these 2 families are coming together, and they're actually meeting each other for the very first time. So it's a very poignant moment as well. And we do remember that they haven't met before. So this is really a very interesting thing to happen. And it will all culminate, I suppose, in the finish with the unveiling of a plaque, which we will put on the Garda station, and it'll be there for the next 100 years. Now, we mightn't be, but the plaque will be there for the next 100 years. And it's to mark, as I said, the first time that a guard joined in 1922.
Do you think people in the area and around Mayo are familiar with the story of J Kerrigan?
I'm not sure that they all are. They have an idea that Kerrigan was the first man to join. But I think by the time this is finished, I think the whole country will know about it.
And a great start to the centenary celebrations.
It is, and we've been blessed with the weather as well, so thank goodness we're going to have a good day.
Garda Egon 2, 2, P. Garda oh yes, you see. Ducky, right. Garda push game sheer, Marshall. Garda
I got to know about J Kerrigan from a guard. I was serving in Blarney Garda Station at the time, and I called into district headquarters one night, and I met this guard, and he had visited a nursing home.
Jim, you were a long-serving member of Garda Síochána, 36 years, I believe.
6 years, yeah. I joined in 1977, retired in 2013. Served mostly in Cork, 30 years in Blarney, keeping the tourists, moving them on.
And since you retired, you took a particular interest in the history of Garda Síochána, and even before that, the RIC.
I became interested in my father, believe it or not, was 75 years of age when I was born. He was 79 when my brother was born. My father emigrated to the States, and he was a master tailor, and he made uniforms for the old Royal Irish Constabulary, as did 3 generations before him. So as a child, he passed on all those kind of details. And he was actually involved where there was an attack in the barracks, and he brought me back there as a child, and it went from there trying to find out who was in the station at the time. It took me so long to find out, and then I realised there were 7 other people out there, and a total of 85,028 members passed through the RIC between 1816, 1930 and 1922. And as soon as I kind of showed the way for other people to find the records then, and then there's other police forces like the Dublin Metropolitan Police. Believe it or not, there was an Irish Revenue Police, and they had 2 ships going up and down the western seaboard chasing poachine makers. 2,500 policemen chasing poachine makers from 1832 up to 1857.
And then you came across the story of P.J. Kerrigan, the first member of Garda Síochána, who were the civic guards at the time.
How I came across it was when I was stationed in Blarney, our district headquarters station was above in Gronabahar, and there was a guard in the station at the time who had a good local knowledge but no interest in history, so he passed it on to me. He said, I was down in the nursing home earlier on, and this guy in the nursing home came out and he said, I recognised the uniform, and he said, my father was the first guard. So I went down, and he gave me the name as Kerrigan anyway, so I knew there was P.J. Kerrigan was the first guard. So I went down to the nursing home. I met this gentleman inside there, and on his locker he had a uniform photograph, but the uniform that he was wearing at the time was the Irish Guards Regiment in World War I, and I recognised the rank as Lance Corporal. But I realised then that I was also aware that the first guard was indeed, had gone off to the First World War, and he had a kind of checkered career. I found out that he was in 3 police forces and 2 armies and had 2 families at the same time. And the most difficult policemen to find always are those who did everything right, because they never get on any record. But this guy really stretched it to the limit. And he was born in Westport, here in Fairgreen, actually literally opposite the station.
And his father actually worked in the post office behind us?
Yeah, behind us here. His father was worked there. And then he joined the Royal Irish Constabulary first in 1913, and the opportunity came there was a request out by the Inspector General of the RIC looking for recruits to go off, and 752 were accepted, 178 got killed. In fact, 9 got killed in one day, and Kerrigan would have been amongst those. He was wounded, invalided back to England, and there he met his first wife, Molly Kerrigan from Drogheda. They went back to Drogheda and they had 4 children. And he was the first registered member on the 21st of February 1922 to join the Civic Guards. Well, you could say it's probably the first instance of pulling the job, because it was a help to him that the first Garda Commissioner was also from Westport. But also, what is not generally known is that the Michael Joe Ring, who's well known here, he was killed in the Civil War. He was an assistant commissioner for a short period, and he decided to go back because he preferred to be a soldier rather than a policeman. So he had those 2 connections when he headed to Dublin, and he marched in, and he was number 1, first guy to sign the register.
What eventually happened to him in the end?
What actually happened was, obviously there was fierce friction at the time. He was promoted sergeant very shortly in the RDS, and he was training recruits, and there would be a friction. He'd been an ex-RIC man, wasn't a help. He also being ex-British Army, and one guy one day called him a black and tan and said to him, Michael Collins has sold out the country with the treaty and this type of thing, and he clocked him. So he was told to head off anyway, which he did. But what's remarkable still is that he wasn't satisfied at that. He then joined the National Army, and it was actually Charlie Haughey's father, John Haughey, who was in Castlebar, recommended him for service in that. And not satisfied again, he wanted to be a policeman, so he joined the Dublin Metropolitan Police, and he actually played clarinet. And the difficulty with him at that stage was, in 1925, the old Dublin Metropolitan Police was subsumed into the Garda Síochána and became the Dublin Metropolitan Division of Garda Síochána. So he was back where he started, and they realised they had someone who had gone, was back in again. So after that then he decided to, for some particular reason, he had a lot of his siblings had actually gone to the States. He went to Liverpool, he met a brother in Canada who brought him in over the border into Albany, and he settled there. And there he met a nurse. He actually worked in the hospital, first of all as a porter, a chauffeur, an ambulance driver, and he used to have the car for the weekend, and the kids, they told me afterwards that that's how they kind of got to remember him. And he married a lady there by the name of Minnie Kleinberger of Austrian Jewish extraction. And then they had both families. He had 2 wives, 3 police forces and 2 armies. That kind of sums them up. So it's enough to get into a short life anyway at that stage.
And where is he buried arrested now?
He's buried in St Agnes Cemetery in Albany. I actually put a cap badge on his grave in 2001. I got the opportunity to visit it, and it's kind of a moving experience knowing that here you're touching the grave of a man who was the first guy to walk into the depot and be remembered. And like today is a momentous occasion, like it's taken it to a new league altogether, and it's reunited both families. But how the connection was made was Kerrigan, when I met the son, He told me, I said, when did your father die? Because coming up to 75th anniversary, we'd love to know. He said, I don't know. He said he died somewhere in America. So I said, have you any address? He said, Rosemary Circle, Albany, New York. So I went home and I had a CD-ROM with telephone numbers on it, and I got a telephone number, came up with Kerrigan in that place. So he made a phone call, contacted a cousin. He said, you have a half-brother, he said, who was here, but he's gone to California. At the same time, Jimmy Kerrigan, the guy I interviewed, had a daughter living in California, married to an Hawaiian with triplets who weren't baptised, right? So what happened was, he sent a letter, it was forwarded to California, and with the post office connection, a sorter in the post offices, I'm playing golf next Sunday with a guy, Mike Kerrigan, I think it's him. So he kept put into his back pocket the letter, handed it to Kerrigan, Michael Kerrigan, and wasn't he living only 15 minutes drive away from the other man's daughter. And they met up for the christening, but the most extraordinary part of the whole thing is the day that they met up, you couldn't plan it. It was 50 years to the day, 1996, that Kerrigan died. In 1996, 50 years to the day. And in fact, tomorrow will be the anniversary coming up again. We just missed it by a day with the centenary.
Oh, yeah. It's an extraordinary story. Well done to you, Jim. It's great. And it's a great day for Westport and for the Garda Síochána as well, the history.
It's incredible altogether. We're having a great time. So and we're pleasing the Yanks too, as usual.
Assistant Commissioner, this is a great day for Garda Síochána in County Mayo.
Oh, Henry, I'm delighted to be here on such a fabulous day. I think you brought the weather. No, it's a fantastic day for Garda Síochána because today marks the start of the centenary celebrations of Garda Síochána, which, as you know, was formed in 1922 in February with the signing by General Michael Collins of the order for the establishment of the Civic Guards. And we're delighted here to celebrate what was in effect the number one guard, J Kerrigan, from here in Westport, and as I said, it's one of many, not alone here, celebrations here in County Mayo, but also throughout the region, and you couldn't find a better place to be in the world than County Mayo.
How important do you think this celebration of the 100 years of the Garda is going to be for the Gardaí themselves?
Well, for us, it's vitally important. I've said in many occasions in recent times that all of us who are currently serving in Garda Síochána are privileged to be the custodians of this event, and there's an obligation on us and a duty to commemorate one of what I describe as the three finest public services in the state, the others being health and education, and to mark that occasion and formally mark it, and all of those colleagues, former colleagues, both living and deceased, who have served diligently for the past 100 years. So to me, it's a huge event for us in Garda Síochána.
So looking forward to the unveiling of the plaque to J Kerrigan.
I am really looking forward to it, and I have the privilege of doing it myself, and it's seldom you can say that you pull the cloth in front of the first guard.
Bhuatlum, I would like to lower to os Gaeilge. Och Nílan ach Moran Gaeilge agum, tá fáinne airge dé seo, ach gumalesh Gael lesh an Gaeilge a úsáid.
The first speaker that we have for you today has been a member of Garda Síochána for 38 years. He founded and ran the Garda Museum in Templemore for over 20 years. He's currently the curator of the Garda Museum in Dublin Castle. This speaker holds a PhD and a doctorate in history from Limerick University. He's a published author of 2 historical books, and he is currently the centenary coordinator based out of the Deputy Commissioner's office in Dublin. Originally from Dublin, but now living in Tipperary, would you please welcome Dr. John Reynolds.
Yeah, my name is John Reynolds. I'm attached to the Office of the Deputy Commissioner in Headquarters. One of my jobs this year is to coordinate centenary events, because we will be having large national events as well, of course, being our centenary year, but we're also going to have a lot of events like this in every division in the country during the year. Yeah, there's a lot of planning involved. For example, our flagship event in August is going to involve hundreds of guards marching up O'Connell Street and into Dame Street, and then taking over Dublin Castle symbolically like we did 100 years ago. So obviously that involves a huge amount of coordination to get everybody in place and to have all the traffic plans and the health and safety plans we need for a big event. But again, it is a flagship event for us for the year, but there will be a lot smaller events in every division, but they all require a huge amount of planning.
And it's important, I suppose, for each area to have its own kind of event, hasn't it, from a community point of view?
Yeah, it's really important, and it's really the focus of the year because we're a national police service, which is quite unusual, and so it's really important that every town and village and county gets a chance to look back when the guards arrived in their area, and of course the connections between the locality, people who had ancestors that served in the job or maybe lived in the barracks when they were kids or knew the local guard going to school. So it's very much we want to be focused on what we do anyway, which is our community engagement.
And this event here today now, you come down from Dublin for it, so how are you feeling about one of the first ones of the year?
Well, it's great. It's really the first major event we've had between the easing of some COVID restrictions and just timing wise. And of course it's a huge event, and Mayo is pivotal as well because our first Commissioner Michael Staines came from Newport. So there will be an event there later in the year to commemorate him, and of course J Kerrigan was the first man of Garda rank to be sworn in, so it's very, very symbolic to be here 100 years after he would have been training in the RDS in Dublin.
Well, we wish you well with your job and a busy year ahead for you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So to formally welcome you here, would you please welcome to the rostrum Inspector Dennis Harrington. Thank you.
Commissioner O'Brien, Chief Superintendent McMahon, Superintendents, Father Joe Kennedy, Father Charlie McDonald, Lieutenant Colonel Oliver Clear, invited guests, colleagues, both serving and retired, you're all very welcome here today. G. Ever Majin, the white num falcha curwiv, got dinner a tan shot anew, or an orchid specialist shot.
My own grandfather joined on Garda Síochána, I think 2 weeks after J Kerrigan, on the 9th of March, and he was given the number of 195, and I suppose to reflect on, as a society over 100 years, the way we have changed. His father had just died, and he got word, and he needed to go back to the funeral and look after his mother, but at that time he was refused actually leave to go. So he had to leave in Garda Síochána, and he came back 2 months later. And when he came back, he joined again, and he was given the number 1212. So in those intervening 2 months, over 1,000 people had, I suppose, answered the call and joined in Garda Síochána.
I've always known about my grandfather, that he was from the area. I knew mainly of his history in the shorter term from New York versus Ireland. My father was always very, very open about the fact that how much he loved the area where he came from, but he never really shared too much of the details. In fact, I'm not 100% sure that my grandmother, who married PJ in New York, knew so much about his past in Ireland. But in the early 1990s, Jim Hurley got a chance to meet with my father, and we got a chance to get together with his brother, his half-brother, who had visited. Once he was with us, they filled in all the gaps. And so I can tell you that at that time, that's when we felt the most compelled that we needed to come here, we needed to see our family, get involved in the history and understand the roots, where we came from. And PJ, of course, was a big part of that. My grandfather, very proud of him. It's a super special day for us. We got a chance to meet some extraordinary people inside of Westport, the community, which has been very inviting to us. We have an understanding of the history. It brings a kind of closure. Whereas my grandfather's life was open, it brings a little closure. I can tell you that my father told us that someday he hopes that we get a chance to visit Ireland and really understand the people, because that is really what the culture is all about.
So could I ask you to formally meet for the first time?
Okay, 1970.
You're the other great son of J Kerrigan from the Irish side.
The Irish side in Drogheda, yeah. My mother was his daughter. She had another sister, Doreen, and 2 brothers, Sean and Jimmy, and they were left behind when Patrick went off to America to live another life, as it turned out. He lost one of the daughters, passed away, Doreen. She was only 6.5. But my mother met my father then in 1920. I'm not sure when they got married, but they've gone on very well. Yeah. Would have been aware of it in our childhood, all right, because we would have obviously been. You'd be asking about their grandparents and this, that, and the other. And my mother wouldn't speak an awful lot about him, a little bit. She probably felt a little bit betrayed by him going off and leaving him the way he did. But there's 2 sides to every story, maybe.
And how many children did she have?
She had just 2, myself and my sister. My sister passed away last year, 2 years ago, sorry. She's only 62. On her brother Jimmy had 4 children. Her older brother Sean, who went to America, he had no children, he never married. As I say, Doreen passed away, so there wasn't too much on this side of the Atlantic,
And what was it like today now at this very special event for the unveiling of a plaque to J Kerrigan, meeting your half-brother for the first time?
Emotional, yeah. I'm not sure about Michael, but I was definitely thinking of my mother at the time. Still am. It's an awful pity she wasn't around, obviously, and his father as well, Michael. But it's emotional. Okay, yeah, very emotional. Yeah, I didn't think it would be. I didn't think it would be, but it is now, Ari.
And have you had a chance to chat about where you're going to meet up and that?
We're obviously going back for refreshments now. Unfortunately, Michael has to go back to America tomorrow, but we'll swap phone numbers and email addresses and stuff like that now. So hopefully we'll make a connection, because I have no connection to that side of the family at all. As I say, we've lost contact with my other cousins, and I have no idea where they are. Jimmy's children. So it'll be interesting, yeah.
And watching the proceedings today and having to say a few words, what did that mean to you?
It meant a lot. I only found out about this maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, maybe, that was actually happening, and then this week for definite that was actually being invited up to it, as you might say. I don't know, but my neighbour, as I say, was a great man for history, and he made contact with Jim Hurley. Jim called to my house in Drogheda. Tony gave me a ring during the week as well, so it was all a bit of a rush in the end, but it's great to be here and an honour to be here. And look, to get all this down on paper, your family history, I'd say if you were to pay to get it done, it would cost you an absolute fortune. Sorry, you're not going to say that, but it's great to see it all down on paper. Jim is so thorough, and there's bits and pieces now that still have to be added to it, but I'm sure over time we'll get there.
But you have the main picture of the story now.
Yeah. The main characters are all there, and look, even for my children going forward as well, for them, when you're young, you don't really care about your ancient history and this, that, and the other. But as you get older, you do appreciate it a lot more, and you like to know where you come from and things like that.
Well, listen, thanks very much for joining.
Thanks, lads. Thanks very much. Thank you. Nice.